Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I'm here on the Paper Tray Ink and Ink to Paper YouTube channel. And I am introducing a brand new stamp and die set called Cake Please. And it has these two panels, these two 4x6 panels, and it has a glorious cake and a cake plate and flowers where you can decorate it, and lots of sentiments, candles, of course. So it has the works. And of course, it comes in this hold and fold pouch. And then it has a very complete die set where you can cut out all of these goodies. I'm also going to be using Tin Stitch, which is a favorite of mine. It creates a really beautiful background. And it has that kind of lattice background frame that you can create. And then I'm also going to be using this diamond frame and background. I'm not going to be using the other piece that comes with it, but we can use that at another time. So to get started, I have a piece of pale peony, which is a paper tray ink paper, and I'm going to stamp out the tin stitch with that. Then I have two pieces of white cardstock, and you'll see why I have them in two pieces. I'm going to cut out the detail of the cake. You can see what a great stamp that is. Just embosses those kind of swirls in the cake. And then I'm also going to take another piece of white cardstock and cut out the diamond border and its interior. So here they are, all cut out. And I'm going to gently remove them, the dies from the paper here. And I'm going to take away this piece of the negative of that diamond background. And then I have the cake, and I'm going to leave all of the negative spaces for all these little pieces and the cake. So here is the tin stitch, a white card base that's slightly larger than the tin stitch background. Now I'm going to just layer this on just temporarily for now. That's so pretty, isn't it? That diamond, I just really like that. And so I'm going to take the piece of the cake, the negative piece, and I'm going to put it in the stamp positioner. I'm going to add a little bit of repositionable tape so that it's easy to remove. I'm going to stick it into the stamp positioner. I'm going to put a tiny bit on the cake too. And this is going to allow for perfect placement of the stamp. So I layered this, put the stamp on there. I am using the layering stamp of the cake. There is a solid background stamp as well. I'm not using it because I wanted some of the white to show through, but I am using the layering stamp here. I'm using a pale peony and Lovely Lady on the edges to add a little bit of shadow. And these again are all paper tray ink cubes. That's what I'll be using entirely today. And you can see I'm spritzing it a little bit with water, and that's just so that the ink can just move just a little bit. And now I was going to get ready to take that out, but I've decided that I'm going to leave it in just for a minute. I'm going to use that. There's a little dotted layer stamp where you can create layers in your cake. I'm just put it on an acrylic block, and I'm going to just stamp it. I inked it up with hibiscus burst and then stamping it, dividing my cake up so that I have two wonderful layers in there. So it's a 3-layer cake actually, and those little fillings in the center. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with these other pieces. I'm going to now put in its negative space, start out with the cake plate. I'm going to position that background stamp. I'm going to be using the background stamp on this one. And it does have a layering stamp we'll use in a minute. I'm going to put a little bit of that tape on here just to keep it down. And I'm going to use Aqua Mist ink and ink up this cake plate. And I'm going to do it a couple of times so that I get the color that I was looking for. This is just a really slick way to make sure you have everything perfectly positioned. So I'm stamping it the second time. And then after this gets stamped, I'm going to put on the layering stamp for this cake plate. That will add kind of shading or shadow to the cake plate and add a little bit of detail and interest to it. I will, once that's positioned, I will spritz it and then ink it with Hawaiian Shores. And now I wanted this cake plate to be just slightly glossy. So I'm going to just where those highlights are, just where the Hawaiian Shores were. So I'm going to use the same stamp, going to ink it with Versamark ink, and I'm then going to heat emboss it with clear embossing powder. And what this will do is give it a really nice glossy appearance. So here's the clear embossing powder. This happens to be Hero Arts, but any clear embossing powder will do. And then heat emboss that and it'll be just a little bit glossy. Now you can skip this step, of course, but if you follow my videos, you know I like to add these little extra details here and there. So it just gives it just a tiny bit of a glossy finish. And now we're going to move on to the other pieces. I'm going to be doing this greenery piece, and I'm going to be using new leaf and a little bit of pine feather and a little bit of Hawaiian Shores. I do like to add some little different colors so that it's not all solid, so it has a little bit more interest. And I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. You'll only see me do one of these, but I'm actually going to do two, and you'll see why I want to have a second one in just a little bit here. And now I'm going to move on to, once this gets stamped, I want to add just a little bit more of the Hawaiian Shores. And then I'm going to move on to the flowers. Now, I mistakenly put on the layering stamp first, and not the background stamp, but that's okay. We'll recover from this. So I have two flowers. The largest one I'm stamping with the hibiscus burst and the small one with autumn rose. And then I'm going to go back and actually put in the solid stamp. But first let's stamp that little candle. I'm doing that with hibiscus burst. I did cut out a couple of more candles also and stamped it again. Another one with hibiscus burst and another one with Hawaiian Shores. But now I've got the solid part of the flowers, and I'm stamping with pale peony for the very largest flower and hibiscus burst for the little bit smaller flower. And fortunately, I recovered from doing that backwards. You might want to start with the background first. And then now there's one more piece here, and that is the little sparkle that goes above the candle. And I'm going to stamp this with Versamark ink. I'm using a lot of anti-static powder, by the way. First, stamping it with Versamark ink, and then now sprinkling it with silver embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat emboss that. And that just gives a really nice sparkly. And I'm going to do two more of these. So here's all my goodies here. I'm going to add, I think this is a BG000, which is a Copic marker. And I'm adding in just a little bit more of that kind of that Hawaiian shore look to it because I want a little bit more of a contrast in colors, not just the green showing through. Now we're going to kind of put this together, but first I'm going to take the interior of that diamond die. I'm going to take a piece of Post-it tape just to block off the bottom section there. I'm going to add a little bit of a base for the cake. I'm using Nifty Plaid, one of my favorites. I'm not even going to take it off its acetate sheet there. I'm going to just ink it right on the acetate sheet because I just want to stamp this little bit right there. And that's going to add just a little bit of a base for my cake. Again, it's very subtle, but I like these little details. And then I'm taking that sparkly stamp again, and I'm stamping it with soft stone. I stamped the plaid, that Nifty Plaid, with soft stone as well. And I'm just stamping these little sparklies around. And then now I'm going to take a C1 Copic marker, and I'm just going to add dots in between these little sparklies just to kind of fill in this background. Again, this is very subtle. And it might be even hard when you see the card all together for you to see it on camera. But in person, it's just a little subtlety. You, of course, can leave this part blank if you don't want to do that. So I have a white card base, as you remember. I have the pale peony tin stitch background, putting some double stick tape, putting a foam backing because I want to pop it up on there that's just slightly smaller. Then I'm going to put some more double stick tape on here, and it does not like to stick to this foam tape, but I get it on there. And then I'm going to stick this on the card base, and you can see, since the card base is slightly larger, you can see a little bit of the white showing through. Now I'm going to put little drops of glue, liquid glue, on this diamond border. I don't need much. There isn't much that I need to keep it down, but just a few dots. And then I'm going to position this, kind of center it. And you know, that tin stitch background really helps with that, because you can kind of line it up with the diamonds that are on the tin stitch. And now we'll just put a little bit of glue of this little background that we created. So we have a little background for our cake. And then we're going to add, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of detail to our cake. This is glitz gel, and I wanted to add just a little bit of sparkle. This is by Gina K. But what you can also do, if you don't have this, is that you can put a little dots of glue and sprinkle on some glitter, or just leave it off. But if you're wondering where to get that, you can pop over to foilfox.com. We have all these stamps and dies and all sorts of other goodies as well. So now I'm going to put this together, and I have some foam tape on the back of this cake plate, and I kind of stuck that down, but I'm just putting these things there just to see if this is the positioning I want. And it looks like that works. So I'll leave the cake plate where it is, pull off the release tape onto the foam tape on the back of this cake. I'm going to go slightly above the cake plate. I want to leave a tiny bit of space so that I can put in that greenery. Glue that down. So we're getting down to the final steps of this, because we've done so many of our details. This, I have some foam tape of the little flowers, popping those up. And now here you'll see how I am using that second greenery piece. I'm cutting it apart. Now in this stamp set, there is a leaf stamp, but I've chosen to keep this all the same with the same greenery. So I just stamped another one and cut it apart, and it works great for the greenery. And I'm just tucking it here and there. Now I'm going to work on the putting the candles in place. I'm going to put a little bit of the tape runner on the back of the candles just so that it holds it in place. Doesn't need much. These are skinny little pieces. Now you can stop here, right here, because that makes a fabulous cake, and the cake says it all. I kind of like it that way, but I decided to go a little bit further, and I'm going to add the little sparklies once I get these candles positioned the way I want to. Gotta leave enough room for my little sparklies. I'm gonna then oh, I forgot the little flames. Let's put that on. I just used a little orange Copic marker, but you can use ink if you'd like. And then glue down these little sparklies. And now, again, you can leave it like this, or you can add a sentiment. Now, as I told you, that comes with great sentiments, but I'm going to use this established mini stamp set that's brand new. It has lots of numbers, and it has the word established, so you can say like established 1979 if you want, or whatever date you'd like. But I am just going to use the 1 and the 6, and I'm also borrowing Sweet from Playful Patterns, which was a stamp and die set that came out last year. I'm just making a Sweet 16. So I stamped that word sweet on some heavy vellum, and I stamped it with Versamark ink, and I'm going to heat emboss it in silver. And I'm going to then, after this is all heat embossed, I'm going to take my detail scissors and I'm going to cut around it. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a border there, but I'm just going to cut around this suite. But again, I wanted to emphasize there are some great sentiments with this, and you'll see them later. I will be doing a video again on Foil Fox's YouTube channel, and you can see it there, but it will come out in a few days. But I'm going to I think I'm just going to put the suite there, and then I stamped in and with Versamark ink and silver heat emboss the 1 and the 6 from that established mini set to make the Sweet 16. I'm going to just use a little bit of glue and stick down those pieces. And then we're going to be all done with this once that gets all in position there. And so here it is. And I added a few little sequin just for just a little bit more sparkle. But I just really love this cake, you know, especially during this time where maybe we can't be with our loved ones to actually share a piece of cake. We can send a beautiful cake like this and have a virtual slice of cake with them. I really think that that's a perfect way to celebrate any, you know, an anniversary or a birthday or any special occasion. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give us a thumbs up and pop over to blog.inktopaper.com. There you can see check out more images, more inspiration, and then you can see the Cake Please, the border bling tin stitch, the border bling dies. You can also go to foilfox.com. We have all those goodies there also, as well as much, much more. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.